5 shocking times celebrities faked their deaths. Death is just the beginning. Oh, how often have we wondered about this strange and mysterious thing that death is? Writers, scientists, poets, doctors, mystics, religious men, lovers, and mortal enemies, all of them are fascinated by the idea of death. The famous fake celebrity death number 1 would be Timothy Dexter. This story is straight out of a British cozy mystery genre. This is also a rags to riches story, but with a tiny little twist. And what is that twist? Let's find out, shall we? Timothy Dexter was born in Malden, Massachusetts in 1747. He belonged to a low-income family and dropped out of school to work in the leather industry, but as it happens, poor little Timothy is unhappy with his life, so he decides to take matters into his own hands. Timothy Dexter married Elizabeth Frothingham, a widow and conveniently a rich woman. Now, with money on his side, Timothy Dexter began a life of strange ways. He applied a dozen times to the town of Malden to be put into a position of power. Finally, after getting tired of rejecting him many times, they appointed him as an official informer of deer, whatever that means. I'll tell you, it means he kept logs on the deer population of Malden. Moving on, Timothy started investing in one weird business after another. He started by buying a lot of continental currency that was worthless at the time as a fancy. Still, later the government decided to trade the continental currency with 1% treasury bonds, and Timothy Dexter grew rich and bought a mansion off the money he made. Sheer dumb luck or a stroke of brilliance? You decide. Also, he installed 40 statues of the greatest American heroes, including himself. As it happens, his contemporaries did not like this and started giving him bad advice on purpose, like, please ship bed warmers to the Caribbean. And so Timothy began investing in even weirder things, like exporting cats to Caribbean islands during a rat infestation. He was finally wealthy, but still very unpopular in society then, so he went on and did the unthinkable. He faked his death. And the reason? Did he want to see how many mourners would come to his funeral? Many of them did. Over 3,000 people attended his funeral. And you think he might be happy, right? He rose from the dead and flogged his wife for not mourning his death enough. Weirder and weirder. The next celebrity fake death is number 2, David Friedland. David Joel Friedland was born in 1937 in New Jersey and finished his law education at Rutgers School of Law, Newark. He was a member of the Democratic Party and a New Jersey senator from Hudson County. In 1979, he was charged with taking bribes for arranging fraudulent loans from the Teamster Union pension funds. When arrested, he agreed to become an informant for the police to avoid jail. But when he found out he could not escape prison, he did the unthinkable. He faked his death. He was said to have died in a scuba diving accident in the Bahamas. The story told to the authorities was that he had taken pills before diving and had disappeared. His body could not be found in the search. David Friedland then ended up in the Maldives as a high-profile owner of a chain of scuba diving shops. This led to his discovery and his arrest. He was brought back to the United States. And now let's just take a small break from all that thrill and do some basic stuff, like pushing some fidgety buttons. Yeah, the like button and the subscribe button are what we're talking about. Number 3, this next famous fake death is straight out of a spy novel. This is the story of Arkady Babchenko. Arkady Babchenko is a Russian TV journalist born in Moscow. He is responsible for notable works like The Art of War and Journalists Without Middlemen. The reason for Babchenko's fake death is the fact that he was a critic of Russian foreign policy. He'd written several articles about it and was in danger because of Russian President Vladimir Putin. Several reports were doing rounds in Ukraine that on May 29, 2018, Arkady Babchenko had been allegedly shot and murdered at his residence in Kyiv. The police reports say that he was shot in the back 3 times at the entrance of his apartment. His wife reported being in the washroom when the attack occurred. Arkady Babchenko had fled from Russia a year before the alleged shooting because he was in danger, but the Russian authorities denied the claims of killing Babchenko. The threat to Babchenko was very real because the head of security of Ukraine confirmed that there was a bounty of 40,000 on his head. Babchenko's death was faked by using a pig's head covered in blood to expose the plan of the Russian authorities. A lot of secret agents were also caught due to this mission. Straight out of a novel, he shocked everyone by appearing just the day after he was supposedly dead. He apologized to his wife, his close friends, and the public of Ukraine for all the trouble he had caused. The fourth fake death on the list is Ken Kizi, a famous American novelist and essayist. He was born on September 17, 1935, and died on November 10, 2001. He was the renowned writer of the 1962 debut book One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. This book was adapted into a movie in 1975, winning all the major Academy Awards. Kizi was the brains behind the group called Merry Pranksters. As their name suggests, this group would travel around in their colorful bus and conduct what is known as the acid tests. They also were involved in a lot of psychedelic parties. He became a torchbearer, a beacon to the youngsters who felt the need for a new consciousness. So what led to him faking his death? Well, Ken Kizi was arrested for drug possession, and to evade his arrest, he faked his death in quite a dramatic way. He placed a sad farewell note in his car and parked it at the end of the cliff. He then proceeded to run away to Mexico in the back seat of his friend's car. And do you think he lived happily ever after? Turns out he did not. He came back to the United States 8 months after his dramatic death and was arrested by the police immediately. And here comes the last fake death on our list, which is the death of Philip Cesarego, and his story is very much in line with American thrillers. Philip Anthony Cesarego was a British Royal Artillery officer and author. He was born on December 31st, 1952. After 2 years of service, he enlisted in the British Army and applied to the Special Air Service Regiment at 21. After his work in the military, he grew restless and used his training to become a mercenary soldier. He worked with ex-members of the SAS, Sri Lankan soldiers, and Afghan and Pakistan soldiers. Philip Cesarego faked his death in a car bombing in Croatia, fled to Belgium, and began a new life there under the name of Philip Stevenson. The reason for this elaborate plan was to avoid making mandatory payments to his estranged wife. Money problems, we're looking at you. But after fleeing to Belgium, Cesarego developed a flair for writing. He wrote a book called Jihad under the pen name Tom Carew, which became a bestseller after the 9/11 attacks. Jihad tells the story of the secret war in Afghanistan. The book shows how he trained the Afghans to fight with the Soviet troops, but sadly it all turned out to be a fabrication. The story was not true. Philip Cesarego gave multiple interviews under the pen name Tom Carew, and this was his big mistake. The family of Philip Cesarego one late evening in 2001 saw him on TV being presented as Tom Carew, a published author, and they recognized him. It's not surprising to know that his big secret was revealed after this incident. Pretty dramatic, right? The list of people faking their death now ends, but some honorary mentions exist. The other fake deaths include the death of Patrick McDermott, Chandra Mohan Sharma, a social activist in India, investment tycoon Marcus Schranker, and many more. Death is such a mysterious, unknown entity that we cannot imagine people playing and toying around with it, but this video here proves that people can go to any lengths for their selfish gains. A human is, after all, a competition to death in terms of mystery. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more awesome content. Remember to mention more such stories in the comments section. We love reading them.